welcome back to yet another episode of Auburn Anonymous. I am your host, Miles Espy. You can find me on Twitter at Ashton Daniels AA. I am joined by my co-host, Michael Espy. You can find him at Jackson Arnold AA on Twitter. Michael, how you doing today?
I'm good. We're back number one in Kim Palm. Tomorrow, when this podcast comes out, we'll be ranked number one in the AP poll. It sucked, the Johni Broome injury, but at the end of the day, a win's a win. He's going to be back by, I'm hearing all types of things. I honestly think he's only going to be out a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And so that's 4 to 6 SEC games, but at the end of the day, I really don't care. As long as he's back by March Madness and good to go, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, of course we'd love to have him. This really severely hurts his Wooden Award chances, which sucks because, of course, we've never had one of those, and that would be awesome. The recognition that would have for the program would be great. But, when that injury happened and you see the look on his face, I told my wife, who is a big Alabama fan, I told her that, look, I'll concede the rest of the regular season as long as we get him back for a fully healthy Broome for the NCAA tournament. And luckily it looks like we're going to come out way better than what I said there. Looks like we're going to get him back well before the tournament. So that's a win in my book. But yeah, definitely a good week. As you said, we are Auburn's number 2 in the country, just in the AP poll. Every other metric has us number 1, and tomorrow we get the celebration. We're officially number 1.
Is it one of those things to you where they are going to they definitely insert Chaney Johnson into the starting lineup? How do you see the lineups going forward without Johni Broome?
That's tough. My only deal is if you play Chaney is that him and Dylan Cardwell, both tend to be foul happy. Mm-hmm. I think it is the best move to do that. But you know what? People might crucify me. But what I think Auburn should do for the next 2 to 3 weeks, whenever Johni Broome gets back, start Chris Moore at power forward. And I mean this. The guy has starting experience. He plays very smart on defense. He knows his role. On offense, he really doesn't shoot it unless he's wide open. Like he just knows his role, plays really good defense. And then off the bench, we already have plenty of scoring in our starting lineup without Johni. We have Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, Cardwell can clean up everything around the basket. We don't need a whole lot of offense added to the starting lineup. We're going to bring Chaney Johnson off the bench, and it's going to be just fine. We're going to have Pettiford off the bench. It's just fine. Start Chris Moore. Moore over the next couple weeks. That's my solution to all of this.
Yeah, when you first say it, it sounds good, but then the more I think about it, I'm not a big fan of having Chris Moore and Dylan Cardwell out there at the same time offensively, because I feel like that just kind of, if you're playing defense against Auburn, it's not going to be those two guys who are going to beat you. Dylan Cardwell can obviously score, but he has to be assisted too.
Hey,
so
he is a 100% 3-point percent shooter.
Yeah.
You say what you want about him, but I'm just kidding. But
yeah,
that's a fair point. I still think I would love to see them start Chris Moore. I don't think it's going to happen. So clearly you don't fully agree with me. What do you think?
Well, I think they'll definitely start Chaney Johnson. And not only do I think they should start Chaney Johnson you made a good point, but at the end of the day, I think Chaney Johnson is debatably the best backup player in the whole SEC. I really hope this guy gets some more eligibility next year. There's a chance he can, especially in this day of era. I've heard some talks about him actually being able to come back next year. And he'd be one of the best players on the team next year if he did come back. He's pretty efficient scoring the ball. He's pretty good down low finishing. So I think we definitely need to start Chaney. I think where things will change a lot is, you have Dylan Cardwell and Johni out there at the same exact time. And so obviously now Cardwell's going to have to be playing almost Johni Broome minutes at the center. If he can stay out of foul trouble, at least he's going to be out there like 30 minutes a game at least. And so you're going to need more time from a backup 4 position. So I think not only are we going to see more Chris Moore, I think we'll see more Ja'Kai Howard. Obviously that's not his main position, but he's 6'7" and he can jump out of the gym. Sure. I think we'll play him some at the backup 4. I think obviously we're going to see Turtle Hudson more, whether we want to or not. But for to have a guy like that as a guy who never plays basketball, who never gets in the game, to have him as one of the guys who is going to sub in and play now, that's not a bad option.
No, he's not. I mean, he's very physical.
Yeah.
He might not. He's a you maybe a slightly better shooter than Chris Moore. You can't just leave him wide open.
Yeah, he's the football version of Ashton Daniels, kind of the equivalent. Like, yeah, you're a fifth year guy. You're coming in here. You're not going to play a lot, but if something happens to the starters, we're going to need you to step up. And kind of what we're asking Ashton Daniels to do this year. And it's been the same for Turtle. Obviously, he's not the same type of rebounder, but he can shoot the 3-pointer. He scored 21 points in his last game at SMU before coming to Auburn in the NIT tournament. So I mean, he has some potential. Yeah, but I don't think this is going to help JP Pegues at all. I'll say that.
Yeah. No, I hey, wish he was getting some minutes. Just kidding. I'm very glad to see him not. But I'm going to push back just a little bit more on this Chris Moore thing because, and you're not going to fully agree with me, and that's okay. But I think there's kind of this, not just you. There's this misconception that like Auburn is Johni Broome is our offense, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, he is the guy our offense runs through, but the dirty little secret that no one's really talking about is there a team in college basketball that starts a 1 point guard, a shooting guard, and a small forward, a 1, 2, and a 3 that shoots it better than Auburn's? I mean, Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, Miles Kelly. I mean, those guys. I believe they're all shooting 40+% from three. I mean, Alabama, the notorious 3-point shooting team. I'm sure they have. I'm not even sure who I knew Sears is their one. I'm not sure who their starting 2 and 3 is, to be honest with you. But I'm sure they're really good. But I mean, I don't think there's any team that really shoots it better than us. So that's why I'm just so comfortable. I'm so comfortable throwing Chris Moore out there and say, okay, just give me defense. Any offense you add it's extra. It's icing on the cake. But, I mean, with shooting, it can't always go cold, no matter how good the shooter. So, Chaney's probably the safer play. I still like it. I still like Chris Moore. But, definitely interesting. How do you think the Tigers fare this week? I know we play, last couple have been on the road. Our next home game is at home against a ranked Mississippi State. And then this weekend we play at Georgia. Could be a tricky game after they've, as I accurately predicted, beat Kentucky and Oklahoma to have 2 ranked wins this past week. What you thinking?
Well, it's nice to rely on. First, it's nice to rely on Johni Broome. He's been pretty consistent throughout the year, so you almost know what you're going to get from him night in and night out. But you look at the South Carolina game; he was actually struggling, and we were losing when he got hurt. And I think it would have helped. I think we probably would have won by more. I mean, I think eventually at the end of the game he would have got it going. But so yeah, when you rely on the guards like this, you're going to rely on everyone having a good shoot or someone having a good shooting night every night. You can't have all your shooters not having a good night, or you're going to lose when you rely on the guards like this. That being said, we do have so many shooters. It'll be interesting to see who leads the team in scoring over these next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think it could be a multiple guys. I think it's either going to be Chaney Johnson. I think he could even lead us. I think Chaney Johnson could lead us in scoring. Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, Art Tahad. I don't really feel like this affects Miles Kelly as much. Maybe he does put up more shots now, but I don't really see it.
Seems like he puts up a lot as it is.
Yeah. I think Chad Baker-Mazara is going to – I mean, I think he's going to look at the situation himself and be like, okay, I'm the guy now. The offense needs to run through me. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I personally think it's a good thing. We've seen it from him before. Last year in the Georgia game, last year at Arkansas, where he drops like 25 points and almost looks unstoppable. And I think he'd probably be the best player on half of the SEC teams. So I expect Chad Baker-Mazara to step up scoring. I think Denver Jones needs to be a little more selfish with the basketball. And I think Chaney's just going to be putting up more shots. I mean, he already puts up a lot of shots for the amount of time he gets. So I really would not be shocked if he led us in scoring while Broome's out. But for the games this week, you got Mississippi State at home. They've looked really good up until this past week when they played Kentucky and lost at home. So they're going to be hungry for a win. It's almost virtually impossible to come win a game at Auburn. It happens maybe once a year. The last 10 years, it just seems like it never happens. This team, as we both said, is still a really good team. I don't see Mississippi State coming into Auburn and beating us, and I think the Auburn-Georgia game will be kind of similar to the South Carolina game from this past week. Georgia hasn't been very consistent throughout the year. I mean, yeah, they have a great record, but you look at their non-conference schedule. Some of these teams that they should be blowing out, they're going down to the wire with, and then sometimes they're blowing out these teams. So,
Yeah. Remember a couple podcasts ago, we were recording during the middle of a Georgia game, and they were losing by 17 to South Carolina State at halftime.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly they're much better than that team. I mean, they beat Kentucky and they turn around and beat Oklahoma, which I don't think the whole world of Oklahoma, but still, two solid wins. It's going to be tough. So let's do a couple other things to round up college basketball portion of the show. I think first on the list, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the games like we did last time, this Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, give our thoughts on all of them. Then after that, before the SEC season started, we gave a top 5 for who we thought the top 5 teams are in the SEC. We can revise ours. Does that sound good?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. So first up, looking at this Tuesday, first off, we both alluded to it. I'll let you go first. Auburn, Mississippi State. What you got?
Auburn. I think we would probably win this game by 15 to 20. These last couple of games have been kind of close, even without Johni. I think with the home court advantage we have, I think we're just simply a better team than Mississippi State. Josh Hubbard's hard to stop, but I mean, when the other team's best player is their point guard, and you have Denver Jones on them, it's usually not going to go well for you. Look at this Texas and this past South Carolina game. Their best player wasn't. They were both small forwards or big men who were their go-to players. And I'd like for you to notice this trend throughout the year that when the other team's best player is the point guard, it usually doesn't go well for them.
My thoughts. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, you have him, and there are other like better players that I think of are kind of their wing guys. I'm sure they have some good. They have good big men.
Yeah.
And they're physical. I'm sure, as always, at Mississippi State. But I think it's a good matchup. You're not going to see me, even without Johni Broome, you're not going to see me picking against Auburn at home. So I'm with you. Next up, Ole Miss is going to Alabama. What you think?
I think it could be a close game for maybe the first half and maybe 10 minutes into the second half. But I think Alabama pulls away. I've seen Ole Miss struggle on the road this year in the non-conference, really against the Memphis game, and that's left a bad taste in my mouth ever since I watched them play that game. Now, obviously, they've gotten off to a hot start in the SEC, and they're working their way to that top 5 we're going to discuss later. They're not there yet, but if they win this, they certainly will be.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. If they win that, they're in the top 5 of the SEC. I don't think they're there yet either. So yeah, I'm gonna say Alabama, and I'm gonna say they win pretty easily. I think Ole Miss is a bit of a fraud. We've talked before about how their schedule hasn't been too strong. I mean, they have some decent players. I think they're a middle of the pack SEC team. Of course, if they win this, that would change my mind. Alabama's, we knew they were a pretty decent team, but they've looked really good. They've really impressed me the last few weeks to start the SEC play. But the interesting thing is, and you can fact check me on this, I think right now there's only 3 undefeated SEC teams, and it's undefeated in conference play, and it's Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss. So we should be down to, assuming Auburn beats Mississippi State, we should be down to 2 teams. Next up, a pretty big matchup. Number 10, at least as of right now, number 10, Texas A&M, going on the road playing at number 6, Kentucky. What you got there?
Well, we really don't know the status of Wade Taylor yet, and Kentucky really impressed me this past week with. And let me say this: I think Texas A&M definitely wins that game against Alabama with Wade Taylor, and I think they're not. I forget who they played the game before. Yeah, they played at Oklahoma, and they won. Yeah, on a buzzer beater. I think they probably would have won that a little more easily if he was playing. He's one of the better point guards in the SEC. That being said, I think Kentucky wins this, just being at Rupp Arena.
Yeah, and Alabama nearly lost to A&M without him. But yeah, I am going to be with you. I'm going to be with you. I mean, I just got to go Kentucky. I think A&M's a better team, but going on the road in the SEC is tough. If they had Wade Taylor, and they might have him, I don't know. But if he was 100% healthy and they had just beaten Alabama, maybe I'd feel a little differently. But I got to go with the home team. Excuse me. Next one we'll be quick with because, I mean, I know it's not going to be much of a decision. Missouri's going on the road playing Florida.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead.
Florida.
Yeah,
Florida.
got to pick some Florida. Ever since that Tennessee game, they've looked like one of the best teams in the SEC.
Yeah, not much thought there. Next up, not as good of a game, but this might require some thought. Arkansas going to LSU.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Arkansas. I'm 18-6 so far in these picks, and 2 of those losses are because of Arkansas. Maybe even 3 of the losses now. I think 3 losses. I've picked them every single week. So 3 of my 6 losses are because Arkansas. So I'll just keep picking them until I win.
I'm going to do the exact opposite. I think LSU might be when I think of the worst teams in this conference, to me, I thought it was pretty clearly, watching the first few games, I thought it was LSU or, drawing a blank. Not Missouri. Let me click next page.
Vanderbilt?
South Carolina. I thought it was very clearly either LSU or South Carolina after watching the first 2 SEC games. Of course, South Carolina played really well against Auburn, and that changed my mind a little bit. But I would have thought LSU. But I really think it might be Arkansas. I think this team is demoralized after their start of the SEC play. We're kind of hyped up. You know, neither you or I had them in the top 5, and people like Hogball Burner tried to tell us that we were sleeping on Arkansas, and we are sleeping on Arkansas. And as a matter of fact, they're even worse than we thought, because neither one of us even entertained having them in the bottom 4. But yet here they are, one of the 4 worst teams in the SEC. Not only that, they're demoralized. I think LSU, I feel like people kind of expected them not to be as good. Give me LSU at home.
Yeah, I think Arkansas and Eric Musselman probably are both regretting their departures this year. I think it was a better match for both of them. I think Calipari's this day of age of college basketball. You look at a lot of these Kentucky teams. He was always able to get the top recruiting classes. One, because he was at Kentucky. I mean, he is a great recruiter, but you take Nick Saban and you put him at Vanderbilt or something like that. He's not going to be able to recruit the same. And that's kind of how I feel with Calipari. I don't think these teams that he has coming in are going to be as dominant as he's had in the past. And I think he cares more about getting his players to the NBA than he does about winning. And at the end of the day, I just don't see this being a good match for Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there super long. Kind of reminds me of Bill Belichick at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned Vanderbilt, so that's a great segue. Now we're going to go from Tuesday to Wednesday. We have South Carolina traveling to Vanderbilt. Who do you think takes that one?
Yeah, even with that game against Auburn, I think South Carolina and LSU are battling for worst teams in the SEC, so certainly I'm not going to pick South Carolina on the road. Give me Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if we're going to try to rank the teams, I think South Carolina is a bottom 4 team, and I think Vanderbilt's just outside of that bottom 4. I think they're maybe 11, maybe 10. I don't know. They got some decent players. Tough stadium to play in, as we've mentioned before, so I'll go with it. Next one we'll be quick with. Right now, of course, this is Sunday evening. Right now it's number 1 versus an unranked, but it won't be tomorrow.
Give me Tennessee.
You know where I'm going. Tennessee. Tennessee at home. They're playing Georgia. Now, Georgia could be ranked come Monday. They may not be, but they definitely could be. But I'm with you. Give me Tennessee. I don't think it'll be. I think Georgia might hang with them, but I think Tennessee's better. Then the last of the weekday games. Give me the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma at home against Texas. As of right now, Oklahoma is ranked. Don't think that's going to be the case tomorrow. With that being said, Michael, you like Texas or Oklahoma?
Yeah, give me Texas in the upset.
Okay, wow.
I think they're just a slightly better team as far as talent-wise, and I could see it going either way. Obviously, Oklahoma has the advantage being the home team, but yeah, give me Texas for the upset here.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna fade you. I'm gonna take the Sooners, Boomer Sooner. It wouldn't surprise me. I could see that being an upset, but when in doubt, I'm gonna take the home team. I think they're probably pretty equal. I think Oklahoma might be a little better. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I really don't know. But I'll just take the Sooners since they're at home. Now let's move on to the weekend. This Saturday. Of course, my ESPN app is glitching up. The first game this Saturday, at least the first game that pops up for me, is Auburn going on the road and playing Georgia.
Yeah, this is going to be a close game. Georgia's been another one of those teams who they're climbing up there. They're not quite my top 5 as far as the power rankings go, but they're looking pretty good. That being said, I think it's going to be 50% Auburn fans at that game. Give me Auburn. Auburn by 5.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. This Georgia basketball team is really improved. I think Mike White's the man for the job there, and you see the fans are showing up there. Of course, I think Auburn fans will show up too. But here's my bold prediction that I have. Not only is Auburn going to win in a close game, Auburn football is going to beat Georgia worse than Auburn basketball is in this game.
Yeah.
Jackson Arnold's going to roll the Dogs this year, and they of course lost Carson Beck to Miami. They're not going to be as good next year. Anyways, different subject for a different day.
So you're expecting a close game?
I'm expecting a close game. Auburn wins it maybe by 5. I'll go with you. Auburn by 5. It's going to be close. Moving on. Texas is going and playing Florida. We can be quick with this one if you want to be.
Florida,
yes.
At Florida?
Yeah, it's at Florida.
Yeah, no, that's no question.
No question. This one will be a question. Alabama going on the road and playing Kentucky.
Kentucky. They've impressed me a lot, I'm not going to lie, especially winning at Mississippi State. This Alabama team, Nate Oates really, I mean, he wins games, but he seems to have trouble finishing games. They were up 20 on Texas A&M or so, and they nearly lost that game. I think that the road ends here for Alabama. Give me Kentucky big.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there might be 1 million points scored in this game because both of these teams can shoot the lights off when they get going. But give me Kentucky at home to give Alabama their first loss of the SEC season. Okay, next game. This could get interesting. Tennessee's going on the road and playing Vanderbilt. Who you have?
Yeah, I could see that being a close game, but at the end of the day, I think we both know how it goes when Tennessee goes to Vanderbilt. It's going to be probably 50% Tennessee fans, if not more, at that game. So give me Tennessee, just a better team.
I'm not so sure Tennessee's all that much better than Vanderbilt. I'm really not. I think that Tennessee is better. I'm not so sure they're that much better. Give me Vanderbilt at home. Tricky place to play. They're going to get up for it. It's their rival. You're right, the fans will be 50-50, but it means more to the players, and they're playing in the stadium they're used to playing in. Give me the Doors. VU. Next up, South Carolina going on the road playing Oklahoma.
Give me Oklahoma. I'm not impressed with either of these teams, to be honest with you. I just think Oklahoma is the home team here, slightly better roster. Give me Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. Oklahoma, I don't think they're great, but I think they're better than South Carolina.
Yeah.
Next up, the Egg Bowl of basketball. Ole Miss is traveling and playing at Mississippi State. Who you got?
I'll go Mississippi State big here. They're going to be hungry, especially after losing at home this past week to Kentucky, and then I think they're going to lose again to Auburn on the road. They're going to really need a win here, and they're going to want to put a pounding on Ole Miss, and I think they will.
Yeah, what a tough stretch here for Mississippi State. They get Kentucky at home, and they got to go to Auburn, then come back and play a ranked rivalry game. It's a tough stretch, but kind of as you alluded to, they're kind of beaten up. Their last home game is going to be to Kentucky, where they lost in a close game, and I presume they're going to lose to Auburn on Tuesday. So, I mean, I think they're just going to be real hungry. They're going to come out and win big. I'm with you. Next up, a rather boring game, but it could be close. You got Arkansas traveling to go play at Missouri.
Give me Missouri. Missouri, after the Auburn game, have actually impressed me. So, I think Missouri's the NCAA tournament team. I had them in the bottom of my bottom 4, and we both had Dennis Gates to being. We had him on the year fired list. He might not end up being on that. I think they're going to make the NCAA tournament. Give me Missouri here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Missouri. No, I think after Auburn, they've kind of had a favorable SEC schedule, but they've been winning, and I think that they are a tier above Arkansas right now, and especially at home. Give me Missouri. Then the last Saturday game, to me, it's pretty easy pick. LSU's traveling and playing at Texas A&M.
Yeah, Texas A&M big.
Yeah, I don't even care if Wade Taylor's back or not. Texas A&M big. So yeah, those are our picks and looking ahead at the games over the next week. So let's revise our top fives. Michael, would you want to kick us off on that? Now let's say who you originally had in your top five, and then you can go with where you have them now.
Yeah, I think my top five was, and when we do these SEC top five power rankings, just to be clear for everyone, this means who we think would win on a neutral court, if they played each other on a neutral site, not who has the better record or who has the better conference record right now. That being said, I had Auburn 1, Tennessee 2, Florida 3. I believe I had maybe Texas A&M 4 and Mississippi State 5.
You had Bama 5 over Mississippi State.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had Alabama 5. So now I'm going to keep Auburn at 1, even without Johni Broome. They really could still be the best team in the SEC without Johni Broome. I know they
dare I say the country? Dare I say the country without Johni Broome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, it'll be put to the test Tuesday. But give me Auburn at 1. At 2, give me the Florida Gators. That win versus Tennessee was one of the more impressive wins of any team all season when beating them the way they did. I believe Tennessee only made like 7 shots, 7 field goals the whole game. Most of their points just came off free throws. That was a really impressive defensive effort from them. So give me the Gators at 2. Give me Alabama at 3. They've come out pretty hot here to start the SEC season. They look like they're getting a little bit better. Aiden Holloway's looked way better than he did at Auburn. I know they try to make the jokes about how he's getting developed by Nate Oates, but let's just be real. I mean, freshman to sophomore year, you tend to get better no matter where you're at, and
the stats really aren't that much better. They're better. They're not that much better.
Yeah. And then you got young blood. I mean, they look like they're getting better. So give me Alabama at 3. Give me Tennessee at 4. They look pretty bad versus Florida, but they're ranked 1 in the AP poll while we're recording this. They'll still be a top 10 team, probably top 5 when the rankings come out tomorrow. So yeah, give me them at 4. And then at 5, I'm going to have to put the Kentucky Wildcats in there. I said I had them at 8, I believe, when we made this preseason power rankings. That win at Mississippi State was also one of the more impressive wins of the SEC season, probably the most impressive road win of the SEC so far this year, going into a top 15 teams place and winning. So, give me the Kentucky Wildcats. They also beat Duke, who Auburn lost to. So, I'll take them at 5.
Okay. Well, our top 5s are going to look, they looked similar last time, but it's going to look way more similar this time. Our number 1 through 3 entirely match. So I have Auburn number 1. I really don't know an explanation there. Auburn's clearly the best team in the SEC. Auburn, without Johni Broome, is still the best team in the SEC. Of course, for this exercise, I'm including Johni Broome, but even without him, I'd still have him number 1. Number 2, as you said, Florida. I think Alabama has a real case to go at number 2. They're the only other team I even would consider. But to me, it's just really the only reason I give Florida the nod is because I thought they were better before the SEC season started. I thought they were better before the season started, so I'm just going to ride with what I originally thought until I'm proven otherwise. Then 3rd, Alabama. Originally I had them just outside the top 5. They've, you also got to realize when we did these rankings, we had seen Alabama lose to Oregon, which didn't really impress me. You saw them go on the road and barely beat North Dakota, who was like 4-9 at the time. I knew the talent was there, but I just wasn't super impressed with them. But you've seen them take it up a notch lately with their dominating wins that they've had. So I'll put them at 3. Number 4, it's tough for me, but I'm going to go Texas A&M. Might be shocking as they did just lose at home to Alabama. But again, kind of the same way that I'm factoring in Johni Broome, I'm factoring in Wade Taylor. If he was out for the rest of the year, I wouldn't. But they're going to get Wade Taylor back, and they're going to be, in my mind, a top 5 SEC team. The number 5, it was tough for me. I debated between Kentucky and Tennessee. Ultimately, I landed on Tennessee. Kind of that same logic as I had Tennessee number 3. I didn't have Kentucky. I probably would have had them around number 8. So I'll just stick with the team that I originally thought was better until 100% proven otherwise. But Tennessee has really, particularly in that game against Florida, disappointed. Tennessee's my number 5 team.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Texas A&M, I was thinking about them too, but I'm not completely impressed with their front court so far this year.
Sure.
But yeah, they'll be a lot better once Wade Taylor gets back for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Now, pivoting from Auburn basketball to Auburn football. There aren't any games going on, at least not for us. College football playoffs is about to wrap up. But the big news, the Auburn football world is none other than 5-star wide receiver Devin Carter commits to play football at Auburn. Michael, as the recruiting guru, what do you have on Mr. Devin Carter for us?
Yeah, Devin Carter, he's a 5-star receiver out of Douglasville, Georgia. I honestly did not see this one coming. I knew we were going to be in on him. I thought he was a guy who might commit kind of closer to signing day. But, wow, Auburn went ahead and got himself a 5-star receiver this early. Now, obviously, we're going to have to hold on to him. But assuming he signs with Auburn, he joins Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson as Hugh Freeze's third 5-star receiver that he signed in a 3-year span. Of being able to recruit. This just shows that, Hugh Freeze, you can say whatever you want to about his play calling ability and his coaching, but you can't. He might be the best recruiter in the nation, and it goes to show with picking up a 5-star. As soon as the Auburn South Carolina game was over, it just put the cherry on top.
Yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice news to get. I didn't know too much about him, but I just saw where whenever a 5-star wide receiver commits, it's a good thing. And I know you're the one who follows. Recruiting has their recruiting connection, so definitely got with you about that first thing. But that was a very, very exciting pickup. And you had to think when Hugh Freeze is recruiting people like Jackson Arnold and Juice Knight, players want to come play for them. I mean, people want to go be wide receivers for those two guys right there, and that's just and be receivers in Hugh Freeze's system. So to me, it was just validation.
Yeah, and I personally, on my own account, I reached out to Devin Carter. And I asked him about coming on the podcast, and he said he actually might. Not right now, but maybe in the future. I asked him about why he chose Auburn, and a couple other questions. I wanted to get this quote that he's told me. He said, quote, "I want to win multiple national championships, and Auburn is the future of college football. NIL is not a factor for me."
Okay, interesting. Because I saw you post that quote on X, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. And I've always kind of wondered, whenever you post crap like that, where do you get it from? But you DM'd him personally, and he told you that.
Yeah. And I asked another question. I said, who did you pick Auburn over? Like, who are some of the other schools?
Yeah, if Auburn didn't exist, yeah.
Yeah, he said Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. So, some big company that we were competing against, and it's going to be tough to hold on to them, especially over Ohio State with what they've done at the receiver position over the last few years. But, and just, it seems like these days, most people who commit end up flipping. So, that's the only part of it I'm not a big fan of, is that it's like, okay, well, now we're not done recruiting them,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is the thing, but it's exciting to have him for the time being, and he's going to be a nice weapon, I believe, especially for Deuce Knight, maybe some for Jackson Arnold as well to have on the field. It's very exciting. The only other thing we had planned, other than talking about Mr. Devin Carter, our exciting new recruit, or commitment, not recruit, was we were going to do a list of the top 16. Well, we're going to take all the starting quarterbacks. So we're going to go from 16 to 1, and we're going to go with what we think they're going to be this upcoming year. It's kind of a tough thing to do, because I think, just looking at the list, for example, Diego Pavia, like, I feel like you kind of really know what you're going to get from him. But some of these other guys, like Austin Simmons at Ole Miss, he could be, or even Jackson Arnold at Auburn, I think both of them have the real potential to be way better than Pavia, but also the potential to be way worse. So this will be a fun little exercise. Michael, kick us off and give us your 16 through number 1.
So, yeah, 16, give me Zach Calzada. I think Kentucky, this is the last year they'll have with Mark Stoops before they fire him. Their NIL really isn't investing into the receivers, and I just don't really think Zach Calzada can compete in the SEC, and he's tried 2 or 3 years before, and it hasn't worked out well for him. So give me Zach Calzada at 16. At 15, Give me Blake Shapen from Mississippi State. Just kind of the same deal. Doesn't have a lot of weapons to work with. Was hurt this year. Was supposed to be the starter. Just not very confident that he will be able to compete in the SEC. At 14, give me Bo Perbula, transfer from Penn State. He's never played a snap. From what I know, he's never started a college football game. And Missouri lost Luther Burden and Theo Weiss, and just don't see him having the same type of weapons that Missouri had this past year. At 13, now this might be a little surprising. I'm going to have Diego Pavia. Obviously, he was pretty impressive this year. But if you really look at his stats, he really wasn't. Even when they beat Auburn, he was like 9 of 22. I think Vanderbilt's going to take a step back this year. I don't think they get bowl eligible this year. I'm not on the Vanderbilt hype train. I just don't think it's a very good team, and they don't have the NIL to bring in some of these portal classes that other SEC schools have been bringing in. At 12, give me Taylor Green from Arkansas. Looks very good at times, and other times doesn't look like he should play quarterback. He's another one of those guys. I mean, they just lost all their weapons in the portal, and they almost all went to other SEC schools, and I just don't see him being the future. But he has potential. I personally am not a big fan. At 11, give me Ty Simpson. Honestly, I don't even think this should be this high on the list. I only put him at 11 because he has Ryan Williams to throw to, so certainly his stats will look like he's better. But yeah, Ty Simpson at 11. At 10, I have Nico. I still can't say his last name.
or something.
Yeah, Nico from Tennessee. Don't need to explain much with him. We saw. I mean, he could improve this year, but we saw how he looked this year, and Tennessee lost, I think, 9 of their 11 scholarship receivers. So, not expecting him to be too much better. 8, John Mateer. I'm just going to go down the rest of the list. I'm explaining these quarterbacks too much. 8, John Mateer. 7, I have Austin Simmons. 6, give me Gunnar Stockton. 5, now here's my top 5. Here are my top 5 SEC quarterbacks for the 2025 season. Number 5, Jackson Arnold. May have the best receiver room in the entire SEC this upcoming year. Was a top 10 player in the nation out of high school. You've seen it. He can rush for over 100 yards on Bama. He's really the full package, and was just in an unfortunate situation this past year at Oklahoma. I think he could end up being higher than this, but I'll put him at number 5. Number 4, DJ Lagway. Wouldn't shock me if he ended up being the best QB in the SEC. Florida has a very tough schedule, and I don't see a pathway for them to really win more than 8 games. I think I'm not really convinced that any of his receivers are, all too good as well. But DJ Lagway has all the potential in the world, so we'll put him at 4. Number 3, Lenore Sellers. This guy could end up being a Heisman candidate. Another guy that they actually do have some good receivers to throw to over at South Carolina. Give me him at 3. Number 2, I'll do Garrett Nussmeier. Probably has the best resume of all these guys who are currently on this list. Most experienced guy. They improved their weapons in the portal. I think LSU will end up being a playoff team. And number 1, I don't think it's that surprising. Arch Manning was the number 1 quarterback in the nation in the same class as Jackson Arnold. Arnold was 2. You've seen it. The few moments he's gotten in, he's looked better than Quinn Ewers. There's a chance, in my opinion, if Arch Manning started, that they'd be in the college football finals right now. So yeah, give me Arch Manning at 1.
Okay, wow, that's high. I thought I'm gonna give my top 16 here in a second, but I honestly I thought I was gonna have Arch way higher than you, but I don't. I thought you were gonna have him way lower, but no.
Yeah, Texas is my pick to win the SEC right now. I think I said a couple weeks ago that I thought it was gonna be LSU, but I really dive deep into these rosters, and Texas has a lot returning and a couple of 5-star receivers coming in, and just going to be a very good team next year. And The only game I really see them losing potentially is at Georgia. Besides that, I think they win every game.
It's going to be a tough one. Yeah, no, I could see it. And Arch has definitely looked great whenever he's had the chance. He hadn't had many full game opportunities, but I'm with you. I think he's going to be really good. To kick off my top 16, I'm going to go with number 16, and I'm going to start with Bo Pribula over at Missouri. Really just kind of a gut feeling. I think Missouri's losing a lot. Lost Luther Burden. I mean, Drew Aller, we all saw him in the college football playoff. He doesn't look anything special. And if Drew Aller is so good that he's way ahead of Bo Pribula, how good can Bo really be? We'll find out this year, but that's why I have him number 16. Number 15, I have a much lower than you. Gunnar Stockton over at Georgia. You know, it's hard for me to really, for some of these people, including him, to really know where he's going to be because we've seen him in such small sample sizes, but he hasn't blown me away. The offense hasn't looked great under him. Georgia adds Noah Thomas, a wide receiver. I think that'll help a lot, but I'll put him 15, and then I'll put our other rival over at 14, Ty Simpson. Again, he might turn out to be way better, but just what I saw out of him in that South Florida game when they threw him in there last year, it was just ugly. I mean, he's horrible. He was horrible in that game. I have no reason to think that he's going to be that much better this year. I know that they, I believe, have a freshman coming in named Keelan Russell. I believe that's the name. I could have butchered it, but he might end up starting before the season ends. That is, if he can, drive at the speed limit.
Yeah, when we were making this list of the starting QBs, I think that might be the biggest quarterback battle of all the schools I've seen. Them and maybe Mississippi State and maybe Missouri, Kentucky. But besides that, I pretty much think all the quarterbacks on this list are given starters.
Yeah,
but who do you got at 13?
So 13, I'm going to go Taylon Green over at Arkansas. He looked really good against us, and I was going to have him a little higher, but he just was a turnover machine, too inconsistent, as you alluded to as well. 12, this might be my sleeper, and I'm putting him at 12. I'm going to go Zach Calzada at 12. I think he might be... He's not going to be great, and of course Kentucky being one of the worst rosters in the SEC isn't going to help him. I think he might be sneaky decent. I mean, he wasn't great at Texas A&M, but he wasn't awful. At Auburn, he never played. And then he went out to Incarnate Word. Do you know any college football quarterbacks this year, Michael, who also played at Incarnate Word? Let me ask you that.
Cam Ward.
Okay, I'm impressed you knew that. Yeah, they've been developing quarterbacks down there. I believe Incarnate Word is in Texas. And if you look, he put up, I think, got nearly 40 touchdown passes this year. I think he got 37, something like that. I think he's going to be sneaky good. But again, that only gets you number 12 in the SEC this year. Next up, speaking of Texas, give me Marcel Reed. I really wasn't too big on him this year. I mean, he was fine. I mean, we're kind of at a point now where if you're the 11th best quarterback in the SEC, you're a pretty good quarterback. I mean, you're not great, but you're pretty solid. I think he's solid. Doesn't do a ton for me, though. Next up, I believe I'm at 10. Give me Austin Simmons over at Ole Miss. I just don't know a whole lot about him. He looked good against Georgia. That's one game. So, let's see what he can do. I know he was highly recruited and all that good stuff. Number 9, another guy I have significantly higher than you, Blake Shapen. This ranking isn't the SEC rankings where I would have Mississippi State much lower. It's best quarterback rankings. And Blake Shapen, even this past year when he played, he wasn't that bad. I mean, he's pretty solid. He's a really good quarterback at Baylor. I'm a fan of him. I'll put him up there a little bit. Next up, I believe, is number 8. Give me Diego Pavia. I mean, dude's as tough as nails. He's not the best quarterback ever. As you mentioned, his stats aren't always the best, but he just does what it takes to win. And that's something you gotta love. Next up on the list, I'm gonna go DJ Lagway. I mean, I think he's fine. I think he's a bit overrated. He's kind of a turnover machine as well as Taylon Green, but I think he'll do better when he's given the full reins next year instead of just given partial.
Yeah, he was a true freshman.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we'll see. But I'm not quite as high on him as I am some of the other people. I think two teams that people are overly high on going into this upcoming year's Florida and South Carolina. I think they'll both be good teams, but people are overly, especially Florida, are overly excited about him. Then next up on the list, I have Nico Iamalava or whatever his last name is. I feel like he's Joe Milton 2.0. Everyone's going to hype him up every single year that he's going to turn out just to be okay. And that's what he was this past year for Tennessee. Number 5, I have Lenoris Sellers. Kind of going back to what I said about DJ Lagway, I think people are kind of overhyping both of these guys and their teams. Not that they're bad, but I think they're treating Lenoris Sellers like he's the front runner for the Heisman this coming year. He's not that good. He's good. He's not that good. Put him at number 5, Lenoris Sellers. Number 4, the second best portal quarterback grab by an SEC team, John Mateer at Oklahoma. You know, he looked really good at Washington State most games. He had a couple games where he kind of laid an egg. For example, that Wyoming game. That's kind of why I have him even lower. I think if he had played more consistent at Washington State, he'd be even higher. Maybe even compete for the top spot. But he's not there. Number 3, I'm going to go with the best portal quarterback addition, and that's going to be one Jackson Arnold. You know, didn't look too great at Oklahoma last year, but as we've discussed, time and time again, so I won't get too far into it, that was all due to their O-line being horrible and them having walk-ons playing at wide receiver. It's going to be a completely different ballgame with all the weapons Auburn has. 2 was the only quarterback rated ahead of Arnold in their recruiting class, and that's Mr. Arch Manning himself. I wonder if I thought you were going to have him lower, but he's looked really good. But I wonder if we're overselling him, and his last name's helping him. And then the number 1 quarterback going into the 2025 football season is Mr. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. People treat him like he's not that great, and I get it. He's had his moments where he hadn't looked as good, but I think he had 40 touchdowns and threw for over 4,000 yards this past year. That guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Arch Manning's gonna. He might be my Heisman favorite as we make this podcast right now.
Yeah, I think his last name will, and his play on the field, both of them, are gonna put him right there.
Well, actually, I'll have Carson Beck as my Heisman favorite, considering he'll be playing against ACC competition. But
yeah, that'll help. That'll help a lot, and he'll have his Cavender girlfriend out there rooting him on the whole time. So maybe that's just the secret weapon he needed.
Yeah.
You know.